so ready to go? Ready to go? Okay. I don't know, I can't see how eager and ready you are for my first speaker. I don't know what kind of word you can tell me to tell me that you are actually ready and excited. Okay, so without wasting time, let me introduce you my first speaker. Many of you know already, so let me just explain to you something about my first interaction with him on a Skype and a Zoom call a few days ago before we decided to arrange the seminar. So he asked me a very interesting question during the session. So he said, like, okay, Hannah, what does success looks like for you at the end of this session? How would you describe success? And I'm like, like I always consider myself somebody who knows what I want and where I'm going. And I honestly have to think about, okay, what does success looks like for me at the end of this session? So I'm going to leave that question for you. Like, I don't know what success will look like for you at the end of this session to make sure, like, to say that it's actually worth it. So it's something that you can share. So now, proceeding to introduce you, Vusi, Mr. Vusi, my guest speaker. Okay, so I have to type a few things because his profile is really long. I can't memorize everything, and I'm getting old to memorize everything. So Vusi was basically born in South Africa, Benoni area, okay, in 1985. He's much younger than me. He's been invited to speak into over 21 countries, including New York, England, Dar es Salaam, Lagos, France, Colombia, Nairobi, and so forth and so on. In 2013, okay, listen to this. In 2013, he was the only African to be invited and speak at the World Bank. In 2014, he was admitted to National Speaker Association, New York, because of his USD earning. I know many of you in this group loves money. So yeah, he's the right person to teach you. In 2015, he was recognized by Meeting Net editors as one of the top international speaker. Okay, and just last year, just last year, Vusi got 96% rating at the PCM International Convention. Vusi has invested in many businesses and regarded as one of the top richest guy in South Africa under the age of 35. So without wasting your time, please welcome Vusi for me on stage. And you know, Vusi, we are yours. Take us for the next 40 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on whatever time you want to give us. We are ready to learn and listen to you.
Hi, Hannah. First, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate the invitation. And to all my fellow South Africans, hey, we're here. Thanks everybody for joining in. I can't believe, Hannah, by the way, after this, you've got to give me a formula on how you got so many people to jump on a conversation on Saturday night. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary. And I think credit to you and the team at Achievers for putting this together. So I was thinking long and hard after you and I had our conversation about kind of how I would approach this. And what I thought to do was to summarize my thoughts into a series of ideas. And I'm going to present those ideas now. So I'm going to switch over as we keep going to my presentation. And then what we'll do is I will allow everybody else kind of to ask me questions. So I want to get into, if I can, let's see.
You should be able to, because you are a co-host.
Let's have a look. I do this all the time with my team, so I should at the very least pretend like I know what I'm doing. There we go, screen share. All panelists. So change that, and there goes that. Exit that, and then I'm going to go screen share. So should work now. Oh, I see. Okay. So just a sec, Anna. I'm not being particularly intelligent. What I did is I upgraded my operating system software, and it changed some of the settings. So talk amongst yourselves, everybody. Talk amongst yourselves. Let me see if I can get this going. Here we go.
We're enjoying our stuff with the song. Don't worry. Take your time.
Engisola manyana engishaya ikhanda lezo nsuku sesadlula lezo nsuku sesadlula wesando nguwena wedwa ubambo batshele lapho mabanaka indaba zabo ilabo kando bakwenza ukuthi ufile alone. You know, macabanga ngami usawobalo yabo lomlando zongoshela ama planning nawo weswili lavo zocela ukubamba isandla sakho safuna samo uthando lakho mfuna samo kinali rato lentombazana mina can't let go. Oh yeah, engisola manyana abuze makhaya lezo nsuku sesadlula lezo nsuku sesadlula engithola manyana engishaya ikhanda lezo nsuku
Okay, Hannah, good to go.
Okay, awesome.
Great. Everybody should be able to see my screen now. So you can see it, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I've got a series of ideas, thoughts that I've put together in terms of our conversation today, and I'm going to go about sharing those now. The conversation, Hannah, the way you and I had it, was really just to share insights, knowledge, information about what does it take to be an entrepreneur today, and what does it take to build a business today, particularly in the environment that we're in and the times that we're living in, with the amount of uncertainty that we're all surrounded by. And make no mistake about it, we're all surrounded by uncertainty. Now, just so we're clear, if anybody out there tells you they know what's going to happen a week from now, they're either delusional or they're not paying attention. The world is moving incredibly fast, very fast. And everything we thought we knew just less than 3 months ago has been questioned. Well, most of our business models are being threatened. Most of how we do business is being threatened. And so the question for you and I is, what does this mean for us? And how do we respond at a time such as this? And so what I thought to do was to put together for you guys some ideas about what to do. Now, for those of us that are joining us, in particular for the rest of the continent, what I wanted to do was to give you guys a sense of the macros. And the macros are important because the macros give us a sense of the economic opportunity that's out there for any person or any entrepreneur who's thinking about starting a business. So here are some of the macros. Let's first look at Mauritius. Mauritius, for those of you who don't know, is a country that's done exceptionally well. It's been trying to displace South Africa as the go-to environment for anybody working in venture capital and private equity. And it's actually had some success. It's doing exceptionally, exceptionally well. And you see it in terms of its ranking there on the latest stats that came out of the Barclays Bank Competitiveness Index. Take another look at Namibia, also doing exceptionally well. If you go to Tanzania, doing even better. Its ranking has increased from 43 to number 55 in terms of its ability to do business and its eagerness in terms of how it allows you to do business from a business credibility point of view. Rwanda, one of my favorite places in the world and one of my favorite countries in the continent. I think Rwanda is the country to watch over the next 50 years. The level of technological advancement, the level of advancement in tech, in ICT, in infrastructure services has just surpassed anything that we might have imagined. Egypt, and for many of us who join this conversation, tend not to look at the African continent north of the Sahara Desert, but Egypt is doing exceptionally well and has also become very competitive in terms of how it allows you and I to do business. So we all know certain brands, right? So you know about this brand, for instance, Red Bull, you know about Microsoft. And very recently, there was another brand called Luckin Coffee. I'm going to tell you in a moment why each of these brands are important. But I want to start first by making this point. One of the most important parts of building a business is building a brand that is recognizable for people, for consumers anywhere in the world. And each of these companies have been able to do so. So you and I are going to spend some time, and I'm going to share with you the how. I'm very much a how guy. So let me give you a sense of how I've differentiated myself over the past 16 years, 2 world championships, 49 countries now. I've had the privilege of working in 6 of the 7 continents. Only African speaker ranked in the world top 12 by Meetingsnet. And I spend more time outside my own country than I do here at home. So I've been a member of NSA New York for the past 7 years. I became a resident of the US just over a year ago, right? So I kind of lived between the US and South Africa, and I'm in South Africa because of this lockdown period. But let me give you a sense of what the things are that I think you need to know if you want to be competitive, if you want to really know how to build a business. In our VC firm, over the past 8 years, we've probably built the most well and most recognized brand in the VC space in Africa. And I make that statement anywhere on any platform. I'll put my head on the block in terms of our ability to build brand. We're not the largest VC firm by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd like to say that we definitely box above our own weight. And so the things I'm going to share with you is the how that we've done it. And here's how. First, everything revolves around how you shape a context. Context is very, very important, right? What does context mean? Context, quite simply, is how you frame the situation around which you exist. In India, in the northern provinces, the Hindu people have a proverb that speaks about the elephant and the 6 blind men. It's actually a poem. And the poem reads that if you took an elephant and placed around it 6 blind men, asked them each what they were holding, they would give you an answer that felt personally true, but was holistically false. The reason is because they would be holding a part of the elephant. So to the person, for instance, holding the trunk of the elephant, they might think they're holding the log of a tree. To the person holding the ears of the elephant, they might think they're holding the leaf of a palm tree. The person holding the tail might think they're holding a snake. The person holding the tusk, a piece of wood. It's not unless each of them ask each other the question, is there someone else here? What are you holding? And together, through a system of connected intelligence, frame the single picture of an elephant. This is what's known as the context or situational framing trap. You see the world from your point of view, not from the point of view about which the world is holistic. Now, your point of view, by the way, is distorted. And it's distorted because you are a human being. You're socialized to see the world in a particular way. You're taught to see the world in a particular way. You're taught to relate with the world in a particular way. All biases that exist in the world today, whether they're gender, race, geography, age, or any other form of discrimination, is a function of education. You see the world the way you've been taught to see the world. If you want to understand market opportunity, nuance, it's about how you see context. And to do that, you have to see the world the way it is, not the way you've been taught it is. This is very difficult. And it's difficult because you and I have come from and grown up in the era of demographics. So what's the first thing they teach you in marketing at school? Marketing 101. Demographics. If I asked you, what is your ideal customer? The answer is usually based in demographics: age, race, gender, geography, preference, number of children, education, financial status. All of those are demographic features. That's how you view a demography. Here's the problem with demographics today. Demographics today are problematic because the world, and I want you to remember this, if you're watching this conversation, I want you to remember this. The world is flat. It's not round. I know that's a controversial statement. The world is flat, ladies and gentlemen. It's not round. Here's what I mean by that. Never before in the history of mankind have you and I been as connected today, have you and I as human beings been as connected as we are today? Never before. It's never before been the case. Never before. Today, a virus breaks out in the easternmost part of China. Less than a month later, you're in lockdown in a rural township in Africa. Today, a Black man gets killed in a, rudimentary town in the US. And less than a week later, you're protesting and tweeting Black Lives Matter. The world today is flat. An incident happens on one part of the world, without borders, without giving way to demographics. Humanity unites around that single incident. The reason this is so is because information technology today, the wonder that is this thing called the internet, and all the economies built around the internet, have flattened yours and my world. Just think about the internet economy. How many things you and I buy and trade every single day online today? We buy and trade news, information, data. We buy and trade financial currencies. We buy and trade education. We buy and trade products on the internet every single day. So the world of demography, where you could profile people based on where they come from and who they are and how well they were educated, no longer applies. Demographics are dead. In the world that you and I live in today, what's more important than demographics is this thing called a psychographic. And psychographics are less about how people appear and more about how people's psychosis actually works. It's about people's state of psychology, their relationship with themselves, and their relationship with the world. There are rural parts of Africa that you could travel to today. Meet a young person under the age of 18, and they would speak to you in an English that sounds like they grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and yet they've never left that rural village. Why? Because they have the internet. They're just as connected to pop culture in the US as a person growing up in that space. In the world of psychographics, human beings can't be profiled in demographics. They profiled in mental preference. What this means for you and I is huge, because it means all of a sudden our businesses, our economic models are completely opened up to the whole world. All of a sudden, yours and my businesses can access customers anywhere in the world and trade with customers anywhere in the world without giving credence to who those people are, where they come from, or what their religion is, or their education, or where they went to school. All of a sudden, we all see each other as a singularity in currency, this thing called a human being. Because in the digital age, at the end of the day, all of us are just ones and zeros. No black, no white, no male, no female, no African, no American. Just ones and zeros. And so in this world of psychographics, how then do you and I build a business? Well, the single most important thing to realize, and I want you to make a note of this, etch it in your head, is that value and how we've understood value is fundamentally shifting. Every single social movement you're seeing in the world today, every single hashtag, every single fight for justice and inclusion is because of the shift of values. Do you want to know why the LGBTI community is arguing to be and wants to be seen and recognized as human beings who have full measure of talent and ability and creativity? Because we come from 100 years, if not more, of treating those people like they're less than human. Why do you have a movement like Black Lives Matter at a time like this? Because we come from 400 or 500 years of treating people like they were less than human. So the way we've understood value and values is changing. And I'm going to tell you the 5 most fundamental ways in which value is changing. First, it's changing in terms of identity. When somebody asks you, who are you? There was a time that question wasn't hard to answer. I am so-and-so, I come from so-and-so, my surname is such and such, and it means Y, X, and Z. Today, that question is a bit more complex because your identity is not framed by your past anymore. Think about it in the crypto space. Your identity is framed by an identity you're constantly creating, not an identity that was given to you. So the first thing that's changing is identity. And that's changing the value we attach to our identities. The second is wealth. There was a time not so long ago, wealth was all about money. Now, wealth is about health. Wealth is about time. Wealth is about relationships. Wealth is about happiness. Because we've seen all too many examples of people who are rich and unhappy. And all of a sudden, we're all asking ourselves questions like, what does this all mean? Where's my life going? What's going to be my contribution to mankind? Third, legacy. This is about contribution. It's about what you leave behind. There was a time not so long ago, the value of your legacy was what you left behind for your family. Today, the value of our legacy is what do we leave behind for our communities? Who's better changed of the fact that they came across us? Who are we educating? Who are we mentoring? Who are we helping? Are we a part of the solution or are we a part of the problem? Our legacy. Third, and this is probably the most important of our modern day, there's a value that's shifting around the archetype of masculinity. The archetype of masculinity is because we do come from a world that's been binary, certainly for the past couple of thousand years. Think about it. You were either male or female, black or white, educated or not educated, privileged or not. When you went to school, remember, they used to classify kids by whether or not you were smart or you were not smart. In the place you grew up in the very town or suburb you were raised in, there were parts of the town that were wealthy and parts of the town that were poor. The world was almost always binary. Yet what we're learning today is actually the world is a lot more colorful than we thought. So it's not just male and female. You could ask J.K. Rowling's. There's the trans community who also have to be acknowledged as members of our society. And this is not about what it is you preferred the world looks like. Make no mistake, human beings have the right to self-determine. Your preference is not the question. And so if you're thinking about building a business in this new world, even how you position your brand is very, very important. Do you continue to speak in a masculine tone? Must every single product made for females be pink? Do you still use statement like, well, that's just not the manly thing to do? Or as I recently saw an ad, actually just today, there's an ad of a shaving company that said, man up, shave. It's on Twitter right now. They're being attacked as we speak because the idea of man up means that only men can stand up for something. All of a sudden, the world is in binary. This archetype of masculinity is being shifted. And finally, and I want you to spend some time on this, the final value that's changing is this idea of free. Now, it's very difficult to build a business in an environment of free. But almost all of you here are using products that were developed freely. You're on Facebook. I'm not sure how much you're paying for your monthly subscription. I would hazard a bet it's zero. You're probably tweeting away. You pay nothing for that either. You're keeping a photographic library of your pictures, either on Google Photos or Huawei App Gallery, or even on Instagram. The truth of it, you pay nothing for those services either. So you and I as entrepreneurs are constantly trying to build businesses. Well, how do you compete with somebody that's offering something for free? How do you bring free into the ecosystem? And I'm going to share some ideas on that. These are the 5 ways in which value all around the world is changing. And anytime you're building and constructing a business, recognize and understand that all of these 5 things are in constant flux and shift right now as we speak. Right now as we speak. So, what should you do? Here is the first thing you do. Go on a date. I command you to go on a date with your customer. Take them out for some lunch, some dinner. This is a figurative date. I'm not being literal. Go on a date with a customer. Do you know what that means? Well, think about, what do you do during a date? You ask questions, and you generally ask those questions with a legitimate ear, listening for information. Questions like, who are you? Where do you come from? What do you like? Tell me about your previous relationships and why they didn't work out. Tell me what you're looking for in this relationship. What's your favorite meal? What are you allergic to? What are your hopes and dreams? How do you see your life in 10 years' time? So if we spend all that time getting to know the people we're dating, surely we should spend that time getting to know our customers too. Better still, our potential customers. Who are you? Why do you want to buy from me? What have you bought before? And how did it let you down? What are your legitimate expectations of my relationship with you? Hannah was telling you, literally as she was briefing me, I asked her the question, what does success look like? What's your end goal? How do you see it? Help me imagine it the way you are. Because once it's clear in my mind, I'm clear on what is both yours and my success criteria. It's going on a date. We do it all the time, and yet we don't think to do it with our customers or our potential customers. Go on a date. Second, build a business that has the customer at the center of that business. I hate with a passion the word customer-centric. I hate that word. I even hate with a passion the word customer experience. I'm going to tell you why. Because I know what customer service is. I come from the era where I understood customer service. If you were building a customer service function in your business, here's what you did. You ran a survey and you asked your customers to rank you 1 to 12. In marketing, they call it NPS, the Net Promoter Score. They were either a promoter, or they were neutral, or they were a detractor of your brand. Then you ask them questions around why are they promoters, neutral, or detractors? And based on those questions, you put in place a series of initiatives. So if the customers said, well, we really don't like dealing with your business because every time we call your office, people don't answer the phone, you put in place a call center. If your customers said that your salespeople don't call on us often enough, you put in place a CRM system. If your customers said that your customer control line is not being manned, you put in place a ticketing system so that every single call that came through had a ticketing system and you could track and trace the case being opened and the case being closed. We had systems to measure customer service. Can somebody please tell me, like I'm a 2-year-old, what is customer experience? Customer experience is every single touch point your customer has with you and your brand. So your customer is seeing a billboard about your company that's half torn, that's part of customer experience. Your customer walking into a shop, who wouldn't now, but your customer walking into a shop that's in tatters, that's part of customer experience too. Your customer sending an email that nobody replies to for 2 days, customer experience. Having a WhatsApp line that's not being manned over the weekend, customer experience. I'll tell you guys a personal story. In my firm, I have fired people who manage my social media account because they thought the weekend was the weekend. It's social media. There is no weekend. In fact, my customers are most often active on social media over the weekend. So actually, if you're in social media, you're spending the week preparing yourself for the weekend. You're not offline on the weekend. You're not only online, you should be in line with all the activities that are happening. You should know what's trending, what are the conversations. If you work for me, you should know how I feel about each and every single one of those conversations. You should be formulating opinions and publishing my content over the weekend because that's when my customers are online. It's part of customer experience. No? So I'm going to give you guys a model. This is the genius of me. I want you to take a moment and be marveled at my genius. Here's the model, and I shared it in my book, The Magna Carta of Exponentiality. This is how you build a business that's customer-centric, that can deliver consistently an amazing customer experience. First, make sure that what you offer your customer is relevant. What does that mean? For something to be relevant for your customer, it has to be personalized and meaningful. Let's start first with the word personalized. You know, the word personalized has person in it because it means you need to know the person with whom you're dealing. You need to understand their preferences, their likes and dislikes. And meaningful means you need to understand why they're dealing with you. What part of the needle moves when they transact with you? They're not just buying that product, they're buying it because it either gives them a particular satisfaction, experience, or performs a certain function, what economists call utilitarian. So, if you want to make personalized and meaningful your customer experience, you need to understand the person that is your customer and the meaning for the transaction. Every single customer. Second, make sure that what you offer your customers is convenient. There are three things you have to do here. First, offer the customer choice, not too much. You offer them too much, they get confused. Offer them consistency. Let me just make a quick point, and I want you to remember this. When it comes to customer experience, please listen to my words carefully. Being inconsistently good is worse than being consistently bad. The reason is when you're good, then you're bad, then you're good, then you're bad. If you're good and you're bad, and good and bad, and good and bad, what happens is the customer starts making a note of the emotional volatility of dealing with you. And that emotional volatility is often the reason they discontinue dealing with you. Whereas if you're consistently bad, the customer knows what to expect. When was the last time you went on social media and saw somebody complaining about a queue that's too long at Home Affairs? Why? With respect, it's Home Affairs. You expect the queue to be long. You expect it to take time. It's emotionally built into your experience to deal with that. Consistency. And third, timeliness. Timeliness is about offering your customers what they want when they want. Now, for all of you today, 2020 right now, on what is the 13th of June, if your business is going to be about being timely, then I can guarantee you're not doing most of the things you were doing at the beginning of the year because the time has changed. The moment has changed. It's a different season. Timeliness. Third, be reliable. What does this mean? You keep your brand promise. I don't know what your brand promise is as a business, as an entrepreneur, but you better make sure that you keep it. In our firm, our brand promise is we exist for the entrepreneur. So we will invest, as we have done, 20% of our free cash flows into our masterclass series just to educate entrepreneurs. Why? Because that's a part of our statement. We exist for the entrepreneur. It doesn't say we exist for our investors. It doesn't say we exist for our limited partners. It doesn't say we exist for our management team. It doesn't say we exist for our association. It doesn't say we exist for our products. We exist for the entrepreneur because we recognize that the ecosystem has existed way too long for everybody else. So we exist for the person who's the least attended to, the most downtrodden. And finally, be responsive. Listen. Remember that thing I told you about going on a date with a customer? Yeah, similar. Listen. But listen not with the intent to respond. Listen with the intent to understand so that you can act. I want to share with you guys a personal story and a joke, if I may. Here's how people getting this wrong all the time. So, I've been married now for 11 years. And about a year ago, I asked my wife the question. I said to her, how many arguments have I won in our marriage? For those of you who are wondering, the answer was 0, none. Now, I'm a fairly intelligent fellow. I'm a professionally trained public speaker, which means I did professional debating as well. I win arguments. So how come I've never won an argument with her? Then I thought, have I ever won an argument with my mom? Yeah, never won an argument with my mom either. Then I thought, have I ever won an argument with my sister? Nope, haven't won an argument with my sister. Here's the last one. I've never won an argument with my daughter. She's 8. Here's why. A bit of humor, but humor me on this. You see, and I want to be generalize, so just forgive me as I generalize at the moment. But see, for us men, the argument starts at the instance at which the argument starts. So if you and I are arguing now, that's when the argument starts. Chaps, and for the gents in the conversation, let me save you. For women, the argument starts. If you have a lady in your life, yeah, the argument started 2 weeks ago. You just weren't in it. She remembered the event. She remembered all of the evidence. She archived it. She saved all of the messages, all of the images. She saved all of that stuff. I mean, a friend of mine said to me that it's true that he said to me, he thinks that his wife actually plans how the argument is going to start, and then even has a way about how the argument is going to unfold, so that as the argument finishes, he knows exactly how the argument went. I mean, you know, it's obviously a generalization. But you know why they say most generalizations exist, right? Because there's some part of truth in them. So the point here is that you want to listen with the intent to understand so that you can act. So I want you to ask yourself the question right now. In your business, whatever you're doing at the moment, are you listening? Are you listening to your customers? Are you listening to the marketplace? Are you listening for the opportunities? And are you listening for what part of what you used to do, you're no longer going to be able to do going forward? Are you listening? And that's really about learning about your customer, learning about who they are, what they prefer, what they want, and where they want to go. Learning about their needs, their wants, their hopes, their dreams, and their ambition. And then making sure that the values that you have in your business connect with those of your customers. I can't tell you how many times I've taken a customer that gave me money, but it was a nightmare because our values didn't connect. Our values didn't connect. There was a time our largest investor in the firm was our worst investor in the firm. Why? We didn't connect in values. We exist for the entrepreneur. They wanted to exist for everybody else. And it makes life very, very difficult. So you've got to make sure as well that your values, along with the values of your customers, actually align. And this is the final thing I'm going to share with you. This is the final bit of information that I'm going to share with you right now. If you're building a business, if you're smart, you're going to have to build a team, because no one person can build anything worth lasting. If you're going to build anything long lasting, it's going to take a team. There are reasons for that, guys. No one is so intelligent and so talented that they can do everything. No one, like, it's impossible. I'll tell you myself, I'm a great vision guy. I think in pictures, so I can model, understand, frame, and contextualize. I can do the detail, but I hate doing detail. Even more, I hate doing admin. Oh my God. If I ever have to do admin, it just write a report or send a report or anything like that, I literally want to pull my non-existent hair out. Now in my environment, you have to do admin. That's a part of the job. Someone's got to do admin. So who do I get to do that? I've got to build a team that can take care of my blind spots and a team that has strengths for my weaknesses. And all of us have weaknesses. If you're great at marketing, you're typically bad at finance. If you're good at finance, you're typically bad at people relations. If you're good at people relations, you're not so great at legal. If you're okay with legal, you're not so great with operations. If you can do operations, you're definitely going to suck at admin. If you do admin, I don't see you doing technology. So what's that mean? You need people around you. They don't have to be full-time in your employee. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a team. A team. The guy who writes our reports today for our venture fund, his name is Andrea. He's in Spain. Never met him. Consulted with him, got him online. We've been using him for the past year. Phenomenal, phenomenal young man. He's part of the team. But in building a team, there's going to be friction. Now, here's how the friction works. Watch this model and remember it. This model changed my life, changed everything about how I do business. It's a model designed by a man called Jeff DeGraff. It's called the Competing Values Framework. Jeff DeGraff makes the point, and the point is this, that if you're running a business, as a leader, you're going to lead one of two ways, either flexible at the top or focused. Flexible is let's do whatever we need to for the moment. Focused is it doesn't matter if we've just hit the iceberg, the Titanic must go faster. Leaders can lead one of two ways, either internal or external. And that's also about how you pivot your team. Internal is us, our systems, our processes, our problems. External is our market, our customers, our competitors. I want you to ask yourself the question, how much time are you spending today doing internal versus external work? Internal work is about all the stuff that has to happen internally. External work is about all the stuff that has to happen in the market, in the ecosystem, building your name, your brand, your reputation, getting more customers to come on board. The challenge with most of us entrepreneurs is we start businesses because we're great at the external, and then we get bogged down doing all the internal work, often because you think you can't find good enough help. The truth is, you're either bad at hiring or you're bad at exciting people to do the work. Tough, but true. This is the case. Then let me tell you what you find in most teams. Typically, you're going to find the good people who deal with people. In large organizations, they call them the people or talent management departments. The age-old industrial expression calls them HR, human resources. Human resources says, guys, let's collaborate. Let's work together. Kumbaya, my lord. They get everybody to go on a team building and be friends with one another. Why? Because it's about working together. And as human resources says this, you get the good people at operations. Operations is about efficiency, SLAs, and delivery on time. So they want to get things done really, really fast, because to be competitive means they have to get to the customer before the competitor does. Now, the point is, if you're taking everybody with you, doing things together, you can't go fast. You have to go at the pace of the slowest person. That's the way it works. But if you're going fast, you have to leave some people behind. So you'll almost always find that in your team, the people who are operationally geared are always going to be at conflict with the people who are people-centric and talent-geared. Then enter my favorite group of people, sales and marketing. These guys are fantastic. They like going on conferences. They spend time redesigning logos. These are the ones that are always on social media, posting and reposting. They hashtagging. They're on Instagram with the latest video. Yeah. They believe that we must be creative and do things first. They are always at odds with the control departments: risk, legal, compliance, finance. Why? Because the control department is about getting things right, not doing things first. It goes without saying that if you're doing something first, you're not doing it right. Those two things are mutually exclusive. You're doing it first. So there's going to be some errors. And if you're doing it right, what we in South Africa love, and I hate that expression with my entire soul, best practice. I hate best practice. I hate benchmarking. Benchmarking is eating somebody else's leftovers. Best practice means you lack the imagination. So you're taking what everybody else is doing based on their context and adapting it to yours. Both of those, hate them. But that's just me. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a do things first guy. I have people around me whose job is to make sure those things are done right. So the reason, by God's grace, I've been able to succeed is because I've built my team to understand this. Now, recognize that all of these are necessary in you building your business and building your team. And you've got to get people that can do different things here. If you're the person that does collaboration and pulling and motivating of your team, you need somebody that can do the creative work. You need somebody that can do the competitive work. You need somebody that can do the control work. If you're the control person, because you're always about doing things right, you better make sure you've got somebody that's doing the creative work. Otherwise, when the market shifts and changes and COVID happens, you're dead, you're gone, you're finished. You're going to spend time trying to retrofit reality into your plans. Let me say it again, because that statement was so powerful, I feel like I should tweet it. You're going to spend time trying to retrofit reality into your plans, not fit your plans into reality. That's often what happens with people in the control function, because you think you're in control. So in constructing your business and your team, you need all of these. Finally, and I'm almost done. Here are the 4 things that I think you need to take away. When I wrote the book, the Magna Carta, we called them the 4 laws. Law number 1, at any moment and at any point, spend your time finding your truth. Not the version of the truth that you like, the truth. Markets are constantly shifting and changing. Customers are constantly making decisions about what to buy. Competitors are constantly adapting themselves to the market and to you. So if you came up with a strategy 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 6 weeks ago, the market's changed. You have to spend time finding the truth, not your version of the truth. Second, the aim of great teams and great entrepreneurs is to be the best at what they do, not the biggest. The irony is that if you are the best, often you become the biggest. Being the biggest doesn't mean you're the best. Just today, it was published on Bloomberg that there's an auction, a fire sale happening at Edgar's, what we known as EdCon. One of the biggest? Yes. Best? Not entirely. For those of you that don't take the point, let me prove it to you. We all come from a time when we had a phone called a BlackBerry. What happened to the BlackBerry? They were disrupted by Apple. But BlackBerry itself disrupted Nokia. Nokia itself disrupted Ericsson. Ericsson itself disrupted Motorola. The world is constantly changing. Each of those brands at some point was the biggest. And then they learned that it's not about being the biggest. It's about being the best. Customers don't care how big you are. They care how good you are. If you're good, they'll make you big. But if you're bad, they'll make you small. Third, remember this when you go back to work on Monday. Vision excites people, not numbers. Whatever you're trying to achieve with yourself, with your business right now, if you're managing and leading people, give them a vision of what it looks like when it's done. Vision excites people, not numbers. If you go and tell your people you want to make $1 million this year, it's great. But not everybody gets excited by that. Most people don't get excited by, I want to make $1 million this year. Most people get excited by, I want to impact 10,000 lives this year. Most people get excited by, I want to educate an additional 100 poor kids this year. Vision excites people, not numbers. I made this mistake when I first started our venture fund. I was like, I want to be the largest venture fund in Africa. That's why if you come to my office, there's an Africa Prince everywhere. We literally have different boardrooms named after different cities all around the continent. We have our boardrooms are also named after like exchanges in the continent. Then we theme them and we decor them. We've got our West Africa room, East Africa room, North Africa room, South Africa room. Numbers, because it was my ego. I want to be big. Didn't work. It wasn't until I started saying to my team, we want to invest in 300 financially sustainable businesses between now and the course of the year 2030. Invest and exit in over 300 financially sustainable businesses. We want to impact over 5,000 emerging startups around the continent between now and the year 2030. We want our education platform to reach over 100,000 businesses. Those are the numbers. All of a sudden, once the numbers had context and not ego, the vision really excited people. And then finally, lead by the business case. This is probably the single most important point I've made all of today. And no matter what you're going through in your business right now, this is the single most important point for you to take away. The business case doesn't care if you like the facts. It is what it is. If you had a product, and I'm telling you this because I'm going through this as we speak. If you had a product that worked a year ago that doesn't work today, dump it. Stop hanging on to what it used to be. Migrate, move, shift, change. Because the only thing worse than the change that you're driving is the change that's forced on you. And believe me, if you don't change it, it'll be changed for you. Lead by the business case. Those are my thoughts. Thanks so much for your time, Anna. I'd love to take some questions.
Amazing, 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 amazing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure. I know this was your favorite song, right? I heard it on Instagram.
I love this song.
So thank you so much. This was really powerful. I just wanted to see if anyone, probably just like one question for Vusi before we conclude this session. A lot of people are saying it's amazing. Wow, you are too good. Of course, that's why he's here. Powerful, amazing, good, awesome. This has been educational, Vusi, very powerful in every sense and in every way. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. So if you have one question, please throw it for Vusi. One very, very related question to what you said. If otherwise, I want you to describe one single word for how you feel about the first session that you have attended, or one of the most important value that you're taking out of this session. If you can just type only that, that would be great. Just one thing that you think like you can take away, and it could change some of the things that you're doing in your business.
panoli. I know my bengatini. When I won't go, I mean, never party, say,